Hi, this is Dave Michaels, and welcome to Real Time Recorded. I'm with Zeus, who just got back from overseas. Zeus, how was the GITEX conference in Dubai?
Actually, the GITEX show was not, you've been there before, and so it's like wall-to-wall people. It
Yep.
wasn't quite that. I heard the attendance was like in the 50 to 60,000 versus the traditional 150,000. But still, considering we're coming out of the pandemic, I thought the attendance was pretty good. It was a very active show. I love the GITEX show because you go to that booth that's always beside Avaya Etisalat, the mobile operator.
Yeah.
They had traditional robots and self-driving cars and things like that. It's a fun show, and I thought there was just a lot of activity. You can tell people are anxious to kind of get back to work and modernize their infrastructure. So it was a good event.
So while you were there, you were at the Avaya booth primarily, and they made an announcement about this Experience Builders ecosystem. What's that about?
Yeah, at first I didn't really understand what it was, and then I dug into it, and the surface they positioned it as a program for their developers. But if you remember, they had a bunch of programs like Dev Connect and things like that. And the idea is that they've rolled all those up into a single program. And so the concept is, if you believe in this theory that communications is becoming composable, now we need to be able to bring in experiences from customers, partners, ISVs, internal programmers, things like that, and compose experiences from the demands of all those different audiences. And so that's what Experience Builders is, and it brings all those audiences into one program and allows them to interact with each other. So you can almost think of it as a composable developer program for their composable backend OneCloud. And they did have some good examples there of products that have been built through that. So there was a company called Toolwire that has this educational program. There was another one that created a virtual real estate program that brings together their spaces and their CCAS and things like that. So, if you look at the progression of Avaya, they've gone from on-prem to software to subscription to having the OneCloud backend, and Experience Builders is you can think of it as the developer initiative that can help them monetize that.
Well, I was jealous of some of your tweets out there. That's a show I've gone to, I think, the last 3 or 4 years, and really enjoy the GITEX show and what's going on over there.
I heard the Crown Prince was asking. Yeah, I heard the Crown Prince was asking where you were. So.
Yeah, looking for me, no doubt. But I couldn't make it this year, so I had to pass on that one. But I did manage to make it to San Diego actually last week for week 42. I went to the Netsapiens Conference, which was their user group conference, which is service providers. I'm really glad I made it there. This is their first user group that was since they've been acquired by Crescendo, and so it was an interesting user group. I did a keynote with the two CEOs, Anand from Netsapiens and Doug from Crescendo. It's an interesting time to be an independent voice provider, like the users in that crowd. We tend to talk a lot about the bigger companies, the Microsoft, Cisco's, et cetera, and Avaya, as we were just talking about. But these independent service providers, they're really being able to differentiate through high-touch service and differentiation. And it's really interesting. I mean, they reported that they just reached 2 million seats total at Netsapiens, 39% compounded annual growth rate. And it was just really positive and really happy crowd, I would say. They also said that they signed up 35 new providers this past year, and that they had a lot more vendors at their user group. I think it was something like I can't remember the number, but a lot of new vendors exhibiting there. So it was also interesting to see, some of the competitive differentiators that they have in their portfolio. I was really surprised that they had sentiment analysis in their UCaaS solution. And they also have session-based licensing, which I thought was really interesting, as opposed to user per seat, user per month.
Yeah, Dave, I know Twilio Signal was also this week. I didn't get a chance to catch it because, all the time zone issues, but I think you did catch some of it, didn't you?
I tell you, October is a tough month for conferences. There's so many going on. Our last video, you were in London. I was in Jackson Hole. There's just everybody wants to have their event in October. So luckily, Twilio did record it. I'm sure you'll watch it. I've been watching a lot of it via video, and it's been great. They did a great conference. They had several big announcements. The biggest announcement was probably Twilio Engage, which is their new add-on to Segment. It gathers customer data from the 50 sources that Segment was already doing, and they've added this new journey orchestration piece, which is really interesting. Basically, they're moving into MarTech. Marketing tech, and I think that's going to be an interesting pivot for them, interesting expansion, and a little less comms oriented for people like us, but certainly a fascinating change for Twilio. They also announced a new Messaging X platform, their newest platform for messaging. It expands the unified messaging APIs with features that enhance deliverability and trust. Trust was a big theme of their event this year. They introduced the Twilio Trust Hub, which is verify businesses so that people do less blocking on their phones, and I think that's a really important thing that someone's addressing. I'm really glad that Twilio is doing that. A new content API that shares message content and templates across different channels, which I think is pretty interesting. Just briefly, Flex One, a new update to Flex, which is a single API to add any channel you want, so it's one API for any channel. And probably the most significant announcement, which is actually just in pilot, is something they're calling Twilio Intelligence for Voice, an area that we're seeing a lot of, Zeus. We're seeing a lot of companies focusing on this conversational tech AI. This one is going to provide transcription and analytics to better understand conversations. And I think, every vendor is really talking about this. I think it's going to really boil down to, get your opinion on this. It's really going to boil down to how accurate this transcription really is, because what I find is that, just gets a few words wrong and you can't figure out intent or sentiment or anything like that anymore. And so until we really crack that really high reliability transcription, I'm not sure how good this tech is really going to be. What do you think, Zeus?
Yeah, well, there's got to be a lot of human in the loop, I guess, learning here. And, I understand machine learning is not perfect, and I think most of the conversational AI platforms do a good job with your basic 80% of your language. And then there's a lot of tweaking that has to be done industry to industry. So it'll get there. I just think that we're going to see these things go through different ways of learning. I want to comment on the point you made about, for this comms audience, Twilio now going after marketing people is a little off the radar. But more and more, though, of companies I talk to, they're giving contact center seats to marketing people, right? And so this is the whole, integration of, you think of, as we move to customer experience platforms, sales, marketing, and customer service all have to be aligned. And so, kudos to Twilio for doing that, but I think it's something that you're going to see all the CCaaS vendors eventually jump into.
So a couple other conversational AI announcements that we both covered, actually. I covered it, I know, Jitter. I'm not sure where you covered it, but both Dialpad acquired Cupid this week, and Vonage acquired Jumper.
Yeah, I covered them both on eWeek. The Vonage Jumper one is interesting too, because while it falls under conversational AI, it's really more conversational commerce. Right? Yeah. So they're actually using the conversational AI technology to let people actually make purchases through the social media platforms. And I thought that was a very clever add-on. Vonage, obviously, they bought Nexmo. So, the CPaaS is their big go-to-market. In fact, I think it's the thing that leads them into enterprise for the enterprise accounts that they have. And so being able to shift the conversational AI away from service to being able to now sales, this is exactly what I was talking about, sales and marketing having to be aligned. It's a nice pickup for them. Cupid, I thought one of the interesting aspects of Cupid is actually was founded by a bunch of Avaya people. And in fact, I think you and I both ran into Cupid for the first time at GITEX maybe 3 years ago. I asked Joe Manueli there, are you going to keep the relationship with Vonage and Avaya alive? And he said he's open to it. So it's really in their court whether they want to. And I was glad to hear Dialpad say that, because sometimes companies buy these technologies and they get lost in there and they lose some of the value they have as being an ecosystem partner. But it looks like they're gonna keep it going that way. So yeah, I know you wrote on both. So you had any quick thoughts you want to add?
I just want to emphasize again that all of this is really based on really accurate transcription of what's going on, and it's not just these companies either. I mean, I was just at the NICE event up in Jackson Hole, and they're putting so much emphasis on conversations. We got the Genesis event coming up next week. I'm just, spoiler alert, or I guess it's next month. Spoiler alert. I'm pretty sure they're going to be talking about conversation. So, in many ways, it's the oldest new thing in communications, right? I mean, sales has always been around conversations, and that's just the way you sell. And now we're kind of moving to this, really analyzing these conversations. Twilio did a really interesting example in their presentation where somebody was reciting a confirmation number, Bravo, Baker, or a bunch of letters, words for letters, and their conversational AI was able to decode that and write down just the confirmation number. And I thought that was really interesting because when you say something like Baker, are you talking about a baker? Are you talking, and so it's really hard for this conversational AI to be accurate. And so I love the intent. I love where we're going, but I think we got a couple of hurdles to clear still. So for our last topic, we don't normally talk about rumors in here, but there's just a lot of rumors right now about companies in play that are either looking to be sold or looking to sell, or looking to buy, and so let's just talk about some of these, because I've heard that Avaya is out shopping for some investment and possibly to go private again. I've heard that Vonage is being looked at, and I've heard that we know J.P. Morgan wrote that Atos is in advanced discussions to sell off its Unified division. Any thoughts on these, Zeus?
Yeah, well, first of all, if you're publicly traded, everybody's for sale, right? So just as somebody willing to pay the price. The Atos one to me makes sense. I never really liked the Atos Unified merger, whatever you want to call it. I thought that was private equity driven by Gore Group.
I think it was a shotgun wedding. I think Atos had all these Siemens accounts, and they all had Siemens phone systems, and I think it was a shotgun wedding. I think that Siemens kind of pushed that to happen.
And how often do you see an SI company actually be able to buy a product company and make it work? IBM's been trying that for years, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So that was one where I actually think that the Circuit was a good product, right? And I thought in the hands of somebody else that would that it actually might do better than as just simply being a tool for Atos.
Do you remember when Circuit was first pitched to us? It was called Ansible. It was Project Ansible. And they were way ahead of the industry. That was one of the most visionary presentations I recall. And I didn't get it at first. It's like, I don't really get it. And then when I finally got it, it was like they were way ahead, but they never got the full funding. And that was kind of what that led to the merger with Atos. And it was a shame to see. And then when they did the deal when Atos did the deal with RingCentral, I think RingCentral got all the IP to Circuit.
I think so. Yeah, that's a great tip for Ring actually. And as far as the other rumors go, I'm not sure about Vonage. I believe they're still trying to shop the consumer biz. Given the relatively low valuation, though, they from maximizing shareholder value that might be through acquisition. I can tell you that, and even you mentioned.
With Vonage, I have to say it's a pretty good fit with Salesforce. I have to say, because they've got one of the tightest integrations on the contact center with Salesforce, and they've got the CPaaS play like Twilio, and Salesforce could really leverage some of those features. And so I could see Salesforce swooping in, and a lot of people thought Salesforce was going to grab Five9, but they were pretty clear at Dreamforce. There was an interview that Brett did, and he was very clear. We are not buying Five9. So if you're not buying Five9, Salesforce, who are you buying? And so it's an interesting, interesting.
Yeah, the rumor of Salesforce getting into contact center has been out there a long time, and I've always said that I'm not sure they're going to do it just because they've got every contact center vendor as their partner, and so if they bought one, now they'd all become the enemy, and that would actually help Microsoft on the dynamic side and things like that. So
I agree with you on that. I've always agreed with that perspective until this last Dreamforce, which was also in October, I might throw out. But this last Dreamforce, when they talked about Slack so much, and they're turning Slack into such an important part of their engagement channel, that they did a number of keynote demonstrations, and it was throughout the conference, that they are indeed expecting their customers. They showed the customer initiating a request through Slack, the whole team getting involved, data put together, the quote, the e-form, everything done through Slack. And so that example works great as long as nobody picks up a phone, which just isn't all that realistic. And so I think that maybe things are changing in Salesforce now where they need to look at that. And again, Vonage has a really tight integration with Salesforce.
Yeah. Well, Dave, that was a lot of stuff for week 42. I know this upcoming week we're going to have WebEx 1 as well as the Fuse event. So I'm sure we'll be back next week for week 43 covering some of that stuff.
And then finally, October will be over.